So we're fast at talking about power still. That is used in leadership. Leadership can use power for goodwill and ill, and leaders can personal values or ethical core, for example, the ethical code, among others. The importance of determines how that leaders exercise the various sources of these power, availability that is aspect of leadership. The need of closer scrutiny seems to be evident enough that the face of past decades, a wave of scandals involving politicians, businesses, even religious leaders for collective uh, purposes, this book shows you those institutionalized process of those terms. The 2010 Association Certified Fraud examined estimated that the businesses around the world loses 2.9 billion. So I want to write that down every year on fraudulent activity. This is chapter 5, by the way. Presidential election nominee, for example, consistently refer to these opportunity. For example, 2016, Donald Trump, your book uses it, referred to Hillary Clinton as crooked Hillary. These are some of the situations that your book uses to show a literature view of attention that needs question on ethical leadership process. Leadership doing the right thing. In chapter 1, we refer to the distinctive between the leaders and managements that says leaders who are right doing the right things, whereas the managers doing the right thing, but we are the right we doing the right thing. There are the right morality of right things, the ethical right things, the right things of a company, the right things of being successful. These are the focus of chapter 5. What is right? Leaders face dilemmas that requires choices between competent sets of value, priorities that best leaders recognize, that face them with a commitment of doing so or doing the right thing, expedient. Of course, the phrases doing what is right sounds deceptively simple or deceptively sometimes. Sometimes takes a great moral courage to do the right thing when these actions seems clear. At other times, though, leaders face the complexity of challenges to understand these concepts. The what is usually your book says is white and black. Whichever the case, leader sets a moral example. This is what needs to be happening in your group as you model this entirety of the organization topic that you're trying to write on. There's a difference. There's a bad leader, there's a good leader. The truth about leadership is to inspire. Leaders concerned mostly their own advancement do not inspire selfishly. Others leaders should internally and emphasize the strong set of ethical principles, a strong set of system morale, values. You want to write that down. Both Gardner and Burns have stressed this as your book shows the importance of moral dimension of leadership. Gardner said leaders ultimately must be judged on the basis of framework of values and us, not just in the terms of the effectiveness. He put the questions of leadership relationship, his and her followers, in these continuancies of morale plane, arguing that the philosophy, moral part of it, that leaders should be always treat others as they will treat themselves. I hope you write that down. That's a good point to make in your discussion. Leaders, which does not necessarily imply leadership, need to be a gentle one, imply the impersonality or demeanor of those dramatic style or non-dramatic style. And Burns took this extremely regarding those moral dimensions leadership, that leaders who do not behave ethically do not demonstrate the true leadership. Leadership cannot just be along or be along or be among along. Leadership must be meet the morale challenge of the day. Jesse Jackson, the civil rights activist, used to say, whatever is true, leadership means most of the people will agree that all minimum it is characterized by a degree of the trust between leaders and followers. This is also another quote by Benny Goldsman that described this the full quality of leadership: trust, vision, and empathy, consistency, integrity. I hope you write it down. First, we must see and trust leader creating compelling pool of togetherness, the basis of shared beliefs, common interest, a sense of those organizations, common interest, the purpose, belonging. Secondly, we must tend to trust leadership who demonstrated the empathy, who shows an understanding of the world. We must see and experience these. Third, write this down. We must trust who are consistent. This does not mean that we only trust leaders whose positions are higher or never change, but that changes that understands the process of evolution of light of the relevance of new evidence. 4, I hope you're writing this down. We can tend to trust who integrity of leadership that are strong, demonstrate their commitment to a higher principality through actions. Another importance is a factor of effectiveness degree of this trust between leaders and followers involves the fundamental assumptions of people make about human nature. Several decades ago, Douglas Magruder explained a different style of leadership, the managerial behavior of leadership, the basis of this people, implicit attitudes about human nature. And here's a work of remain a quiet influence of today. Magruder identified 2 constructing sets of assumptions people make about human nature, calling these the X and Y theory. I hope you write that down and you are using it in your discussion. The theory X reflects a more pessimistic view of the managers with the orientation of maybe rely on heavily on cohesiveness, external control method of motivation workers such as pay, disciplinary techniques, punishment, trust, threats. They assume people are not naturally industrious motivated to work. Maybe manager's job is minimize or harmful effects of workers of natural laziness, irresponsibility by closely overseeing their work and creating external incentive to do well, to do not. Avoid slacking. The Y theory by contract reflects the view of most people, intrinsically motivational by their work, rather than needing to be cohesive, work productively. Such people value a sense of achievement, the personal growth and pride, and the contribution of the organization, the contribution of those organization job tasks done well. Peter Jackson, director of the Lord of Rings film trilogy, seems to exemplify the 45 view of human nature theory and asks how do we stand up to this executive. Jackson answered, well, I just find that most people appreciate honesty. I find that if you try not to have any pretension or you tell the truth, you talk to them, you treat them as well collaborators. I find that studio people are usually very, very supportive. That's Jackson for you. But particular advantage to holding the X and Y theory view, the evidential, there are evidence that shows the sex of a more frequently comes to leaders, the sheer positive view of those human nature. Hall and Donald reported finding 5 separate studies, write this down, involving over 12,000 managers that explored the relationship between managerial achievements, attitudes towards such subordinates. Overall, they found that managers who are strongly subscribed to the X believe they were more likely to be lower achieving group. There's nothing so fast as the speed of trust. Stephen Covey, the American actor, I know you watched this educator dilemma course, that for all the most part, both the X and Y theory leaders will say that they have the right belief. That's very true. Doing the right thing, that's very true. This begs the question of what people generally means by the right, which in turn raises the array of issues involving techniques and ethic, value, morale, reasoning, and the influence they have on behavior, values, construct, representing or generalizing the behavior of the state of fears, considering by the individual to the importances. When Patrick Henry said, "Give me liberty or give me death," he was expressing the value placed on the political freedom, the opportunity to continually study, learn, and that may have a fundamental value on the state of affairs. Person to pursue a career in academics, someone who values a personality, individual integrity, may be forced to resign from the unethical company. Values earned through socialization and social concept process, they become more internal for people that represent components of integrity that play a central role in one overall physiology makeup, the effect of behavior, variety of those situations. Setting or work values affect the decision about joining an organization, commitment, relationship, co-worker, decision about leaving leaving the organization, importance of leadership to realize individual in the same work unit can have a considerable different value, especially because we cannot see the value directly. We cannot make the inferences or influence about people, the values based on their behavior and interest and perspective on importance of value, consistency between one another. One another behavioral values can be highlighted. I hope you'll focus on figure 5.1 that lists some of the major values that may be considered importances of individual and those organization factors. The instrument values that we found, the table that shows referring modes in 5.1 behavior versus terminal values referring to those desired. For example, some individual value equality, freedom, the comfortable of life elsewhere. Others believe that family, security, salvation, importance of goals, it just goes on in terms of instrumental values. Such individuals may think it is important always to the act of ambitious capability, honesty, manner, whereas others may have or may think the importance is only to be ambitious, capable. The point of keep in mind here is not only just different people, often different values. I hope you write that down. Not different people, but often different values. Values sometimes lead to behave differently. Characterize approaches to leadership. I hope you write that topic down because it's very important. You just use this in your discussion. Good leader without a good person doesn't make sense to say. For example, I can use Hitler. Effective leadership, he was or was not a person centered. Although some people might consider the phrase Hitler unethical leadership. Define ethical leadership. Your book uses two core components, morale and morality that manages versus person as seen in the principality decision-making process. It appears that with the broader society, the action of people indicate that we do the right thing. We do the right thing personally, professionally. I hope you're writing this down. We do the right thing to characterize as honesty, fair, open. In addition, ethical leaders have the clear ethical standard that they pursue in the face of pressure. Otherwise, more being just morale. People, ethical leaders are morale. Managers must be morale who make ethical explicit part of leadership. Agenda of communication of ethic and values, messages, invisible, intentional, role modeling, ethical behavior. In recent years, there has been a rekindling interest of approaches of leadership that is inherently explicit based on interdependency between effective leadership and certain values, certain value systems. This is a bold contrast to decades ago, our tradition of social science of being self-consciously, the value of free pursuit, your book called it, the objective of two prominent approaches. This movement was described in a greater detail here in your book, Authentic Leadership. Authentic leadership is, are you writing this down? Grounded in a principle found in the familiar self. Authentic leadership exhibit consistently among values of beliefs, action. The roots of authentic leaderships are also various in expression of those humanistic movement, including if you want to write this down, the Maslow theory, the actualization of concept of fully functional central personal. The Marlow's and another one's Roger theory is based idea on those individual development, understanding the interacting development, the social environment, so as to become more truly independent. Others' expectation of them, individual of those groups you're working in, the culture of those groups you're working in, are guided by the dictates of the universal truth. The implicit of such individual manifests between those working group to be ethical, inside, outside. They act between what they're doing. They have realistic self-perception, free from blind spots, misrepresentations, conceptions, self-common to those others in the group, accepting themselves, their nature of others. Authentic leaders, your book calls us, must have strong conviction. So important that you write this down. Any questions so far on this chapter? Adiola, Fahina, Marcus, Shannon.
No questions as of right now.
No questions for me. Me neither.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I've gone over the up and down, the self-awareness that you need to align on these actions of theory and the values that point such of this theory that shows the process of these ethical leadership, shows a process of striving to enhance a group cohesiveness based on theory X and Y, identifying those best self, checkpoint, core values is really what I'm trying to get to concerning your leadership. The agendas of operating practices and verifying those practices, those actions that is aligned with those highest ethical principality of morale principle. In this way, practicing authentic leadership becomes talking, taking, serving, having morale, concerning a relationship, on social responsibility of performance as standard. Something to think about. The most important thing is acting honestly. Once you've learned to understand leadership, Samuel Goodwin, early film producer, he was a producer. The roles of these ethical values in organization was very important to his leadership. As individual possesses a set of individual values, so do you. Organization values then follows the dominant values. Many times these values features a prominent companies' annual report on a lot of their website. These values represent principality which employees are to get to work and get the work done. Treat others, employees, customer service, vendors with the same respect. The value represent the operating principle. This is something you really want to focus on in your group. The potential of these degree alignment between organization, state of value, and subordinate. The value of these leadership shows in all these Fortune 500 corporations. It's called a value statement about making proper decisions, making an organization prioritize the most business concept. Leaders such have a major in these company process and decision. There's often a significant gap between these and some companies, smaller companies. When company operates without these of leadership of value, sometimes they go out of business. The operation is not functionable. Well, let me go to a summary of this chapter. This chapter has reviewed evidences of relationship of ethical values and leadership. Ethic is a branch of philosophy that deals with the right conduct. Values constructs that represent general sets of behavior, the state of affairs of the individual, the state of affair of the company, the importance that is needed a central part of the leadership, the physiology makeup, the value that affect leadership through a culture, a contact at which various attributes and behaviors are regarded positive, negative. The contact that one believes about the right and wrong, it matters how one makes the moral, ethical judgment, how manner which one solves the moral problem is also not only important but refers to the moral reasoning. Ethical action, of course, involves more than just cognitive process of morale or reasoning. That's why people behave. Oh, people don't always behave. How to predict and act or the values. Furthermore, ethical dilemma people face tend not to involve choice between what is right or wrong, but between the two different rights. Hope you write that down in its conclusion. The useful apply several different principles resolving moral dilemmas. Recently, many approaches to leadership have explicitly addressed the tendency, not tendency between effective leadership and particular value of the system. The concept of the authentic leadership, the servant leadership, are among the most increased interest in recent years. These kinds of practice can institute within an organization to enhance the likelihood, enhance the business, having an ethical climate. I thank you for joining me today at Master Level 524. I'm Dr. Femi Oberson, your professor. I am now ending this lecture at 7:59 hour. I will take questions before closing. I want you this week to have a good week, not only to enjoy